Hi, in the last clip I have integrated Redux in a React project, but now I want to go a bit further because I'm coming from a Vue ecosystem, and in Vue we have the Vux, which is a store manager, which allows us to make network requests as part of the store. So I want to obtain the same thing, meaning that if we take our project, which is here, and just refresh a bit the page, I want to have a button on the up page, like here, button, and say get user, save it. And this button, when I'm going to click on it, I want to fetch the data from the JSON placeholder, which is basically a fake REST API. Okay, and this will return a list of users. It's like here, 10 users. Okay, go back. And URL should be something like that, except that we have to replace to-dos with users. So basically, to achieve that, I've came across the thunk library. So you need to install at first redux-thunk. After you install that, I have already done that. You go to the previously created store.js file, and you have to also import the apply middleware. Okay, you take this apply middleware and we're gonna use it in here in the create store, but not before defining some function. Okay, so first of all, I want another property here called fetching, right? Because when this the users are fetching, I want to set this to be true, and in order to do that, I'm going to create a function which says fetch user request, which basically is just returning the type fetch user, and nothing as data. You know, it's basically the same thing here. So we have this function fetch user request, which gonna be called when the request is started. Then we have another function user fetch user success. This is called when we are getting the data, and it's gonna return the type set user, which is this one here. So we already have it. And also as an argument, we'll take the user, of course, and we'll say user to be equal to user. But being the same name, having the same name, I don't have to declare it twice. Okay, of course, I have to declare this case of fetching user because it's going to be called by this function. And this will return the state and fetching true because I'm fetching the data. And finally, we need the function to fetch the user, right? Fetch user. You might wonder, like, what's the point of this thunk library? Because I'm gonna actually import it now. Import thunk from thunk, redux-thunk, right? Well, this is only to be added in here after handle state, after the creation of the store. So we say apply middleware, and here the argument will be thunk. So that's all. It doesn't do too much, but under the hood, basically, it allows us to somehow, before changing the state, making an HTTP request. Of course, I have to also add axios because I'm going to use axios to make the request. So thunk is extremely simple. You just do the import and apply middleware from Redux, and you just pass this in here. And with that, you get a set of functions which will do the network request. Well, this fetch user, it's a bit more interesting because it's going to return a function, and it's going to be an async function because here I'm going to do the network request, and I have, of course, try catch block. Okay, and the catch, I'm going to just log the error, but basically we'll maybe want to also have a state for error here. I'll not have for now. And of course, here we will have as an argument dispatch. Basically, this is somehow part of thunk, right? But you don't see it. It's not so obvious. And it's very good because that is not as such, because I want less complexity in my code. So I will have two functions for the making the request and setting the fetching to true. When the user is success, I want to update the state, and of course the fetching function itself, which will have the following code. At first, I just want to have the dispatch and fetch user request. This will make the mutation of the state fetch user, which is here, and I'm going to set fetching to true. And then I have here const data equals await axios.get and the URL, which is let me copy it again, is this one. So it's going to be users. Okay, and I know that I have to import, of course, axios. I know that this will return an array of users, an array of objects. So if I want to take the first username, I have to say data element at index 0 and then dot name. So I'm gonna now dispatch this function fetch user success, and you see that we are passing here the user. So as I said, the user is data at element 0 dot name. Okay. Okay, so this part is done. Now all I have to do is anywhere in my project to call this function. In order to import it in a page or a component, I have to say export constant. Then I'm going to remove function from here, and I'm going to say here function. Okay. Now this can be imported for example in the app.js. So I'm going to get here, go here to this button, and I'm say on click get user, and this will be a function. Say like a function get user, and this will say will use the dispatch. So I have to import the use dispatch, and then const dispatch equals use dispatch, and add it in here. You know, when in the last clip about Redux, the dispatch was having something like that, where action was an object with the type and user, right? But this time, instead of this action, and this is the role of thunk, from what I understand, is that instead of this object, I'm gonna just put a function and execute it. And the function is fetch user, of course, because I want to fetch user before I'm changing the state. So I'm gonna say import from store, and here it's fetch user. This I'm gonna call it now, but as I mentioned, by executing it, because I am returning a function by doing that. Click save, gonna go and refresh the page, and now I should get, and let me check also the network. Here I should have a network request. Click the user, get the request, and voila, we get the first element which has the name. Okay, if I would be to change this to 1, now I'm gonna get a different name. Okay, for me this is very convenient because I can set a list of I would call them methods and use it in use it in my project in components and pages or everywhere else. And in this way I can basically hook up the network request before changing the state. So now you have basically a complete store manager which declares the initial state. So we have a global state, we have mutations, this handle state function, and here we'll have the actions which are changing the state, and nicely the dispatching actions, meaning the network request. I hope this clip will help you in creating a nice scalable React project, but let me know if I missed something. Right, bye.